Hi there, thanks for joining me on this week's episode. I'm Peter K. de Villiers, and this is Gaps and Gains, where I endeavour to answer some questions that I get from customers, prospects, people I meet, and share those answers with you, and then hopefully we can all learn together. So let's jump straight in. First question, why am I working longer hours than when I started my business? Now, this happens, I'd say, probably all the time, every business. It's unlikely that you're going to work less and less, at least initially in the business. And it's not necessarily a problem, but if it becomes the norm over a long period of time, then I think there is an issue there. And it may be a couple of things, I'd say it's a symptom of. The one is if you don't have systems and automation in place, then as the business grows, there are more things that need to be done. If you've not handed those things over to team members or to systems, then you simply have more to do. And therefore, at the start of your business, initially, you're working a lot to get business, to get the thing off the ground. And then once you've got it off the ground, now there's a lot of work to do. And if you don't structure that right and you don't get the right help, either from other people or from the right tools, then the only outcome is that you're working more and longer hours because there's more to do. So you really want to look at what is it that's taking up your time, what is it that's making you do more work. So if you're sitting and doing quotes and invoices, accounting, bookkeeping, whatever, at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night, then I'd say there's definitely something that you need to change. Now, if you're just working long hours because the business is doing really well and you're supporting it and you're pushing it along and you've got systems and you've got people helping, but you're still having to work long hours to roll the rock up the hill up to a certain point, then that's okay. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you want to make sure you understand that it's because you're doing really important work rather than you're just doing more and more because there is more to do. So I'd say look at what you're actually doing rather than how many hours you're spending doing it, and see where the balance is there. And if you feel like you're working on important things, then keep going and make improvements as you can and hand things off to people or your systems and automation. And then a bit like an aeroplane that takes flight, it's really hard to get it off the ground, but that feeling when it suddenly lifts off the ground and you get that feeling in your stomach where it's in the air, that's what you're looking for the business as well, where you can then start focusing on moving forward rather than simply getting off the ground. Moving on, question number 2, related here, is being the hardest worker in my business a strength or a weakness? And very much to the first question, if you're the hardest worker in the business, if you own the business, it is very likely that you will always be the hardest worker. But if you are working really hard, doing work that other people in the business can do, or that you can hand off to your systems and automation, then I'd say you want to reassess that. It is fine being as the hardest worker, and generally the hardest worker is the kind of person who will start a business. So you're in the right place if that's your approach. But again, you want to make sure that you are putting in that effort on the right thing. So let's say, for instance, we look at a trades business, a small building company, doesn't really matter what it is. But if you as the business owner is first on site doing the physical labor, and you're the last one to leave site doing the physical labor, then I'd say you want to reassess and how you deal with your team and who's on your team and how you do that. Because if that's what you're doing, then you've got to go home and you've got to do everything else that needs to happen around the business that's not the physical work. and you're going to run out of hours in the day, and you'll definitely run out of energy. So you want to analyze how you're spending your time, and then make sure that you are the hardest worker in your business, but working on the right things. Simply being the guy who lifts the most boxes isn't going to move the business forward. And in that scenario, you can fall into the trap of, well, it's quicker if I just do it myself. But if you keep thinking that for everything that you're doing, you will be the hardest worker, but you'll find that the business doesn't move forward. You're just treading water, and you're running on a mouse or hamster wheel like crazy, and not making the progress that you think you should, because you'd think, well, I'm working really hard, this must move forward. But we can work really hard at the wrong things, and then you still remain stuck. So it's not so much whether it's a strength or a weakness, provided you put that effort, being the hardest worker in your business, to the right tasks and working on the right things. Question 3, how do I create accountability in my team without micromanaging? I think the overriding principle here for me would be that you should allow your team to make mistakes. Because if you check on every little thing they do as they're doing it to ensure nothing goes wrong, then that's the micromanaging that just creates resentment in your team, because you ask them to do things and then you stand over their shoulder and tell them how to do it, and tell them every step of the way where they're going wrong. They don't learn from that, they just get frustrated, and so do you, and you don't get to build the business that you really want. You don't get to build a business of value either. So if you, like I've discussed in the past, if you use automation in your systems to create a framework, a scaffolding framework within which your team can deliver the work and the services that they have to deliver, you can think of those as guardrails. And you might have seen the little rails that come up when kids go 10-pin bowling. Now the guardrails are there to stop the ball just going in the gutter every time. And you still can tell the child how to better approach what they're doing. The guardrails are there, and you may find that they don't even touch the guardrails, but they still don't hit all the pins, or they might only hit 2 of them. So you can still improve their game with the guardrails there. And that's the way you want to think about the systems, that you can have that. And then, of course, the guardrails and the system and the scaffolding and the framework that they work within can get more complex over time if your business requires it. But you have those in place, and then you have to just let them do the work. And then you just get into a cycle, into a routine where you can say, okay, every Monday morning we look at the work that was done last week, what was great about it, what needs improving, find out if your systems need to change for that, but get them to learn from the mistakes. How can it be done better? And then what work are we doing this week that we can apply those improvements to? And then next Monday you just do the same thing. Get the team in, look at the previous week, look at the coming week, and do it that way rather than standing over their shoulders and completely micromanage every single little step. Now, you have to go into this understanding they will get it wrong, and it's okay for them to get it wrong, depending on your business. If you're flying aeroplanes, getting it wrong is not an option. Most of us don't do anything like that. So you have to allow the team to get it wrong, and then use that as a learning opportunity, not as a stick to hit them with. And that will then build trust within the team. They'll understand that you actually trust them. And then those Monday morning meetings become a lot easier, because they know it's not being called to the headmaster's office. Everyone's working together to work out, how can we make this business better? And part of that is them improving how they do work, you understanding how to do that, and then that avoids the micromanaging. But they know they're accountable, because they have to report every Monday. And sort of a bit like with sports teams, you play a match on Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, and you've got the debrief on Monday because you want to be better next weekend when you play another game. It's not because you want to berate people for what they did last weekend. So I'd say try and get that rhythm going, and that'll make it a lot easier for you. And then have your systems, your processes, automation supporting everyone so they can do really, really great work. Number 4, what are the AI tools that are genuinely useful for a service business right now? So I would, generally with the work that we do, we don't particularly get involved in AI tools for the most part because they change so much. So we tend to build and implement custom tools for the business so that the business has the tools they need. And yes, there's AI in the background, but you implement AI into your business so that it works for you. Now, there are instances where you can have AI in a CRM, and that's really useful because it has that feature there and that functionality. But there's an awful lot of gains you can have in the business by creating or having small AI tools created, or a suite of tools specifically for your business that understands the context and everything about your business. And you can then get massive gains from the AI that way without having to change your business in order to work with the AI tool that you might pay someone else for. In that instance, in the long run, building your own tools or having them built also works out a lot cheaper because you're not paying someone else for 25 features when you only want 3. And you can manage that and get it to do exactly what you need it to do. And nowadays it's much easier and it's much cheaper to do that, and it's definitely worthwhile to look at that. So I can't really recommend a particular or a list of tools, because in the scenarios that we work in, we tend to build small tools as they are required and improve them as they go. To give you an idea of what those kind of tools can look like is in our review request automation that we build. There are fields, questions in a form in the CRM that ask 5 questions of the prospect, of the customer actually, and then that is their answers are sent to AI as a prompt to then turn their answers into a suggested review, and then that is sent to the customer and said, hey, I took the liberty of creating this. Thanks for filling in the survey. I took the liberty of creating a review. If you don't mind, have a look. If you're happy to share it as it is, do that. Otherwise, edit whatever you need and then just click here and share the review. So those kind of tools, those little things can help an awful lot, but it's very bespoke to your business. It's very particular to your business, and you don't need to go and buy some expensive AI tool to get that benefit. And there's lots of examples like that of what you can build, but it's what's in your business, what it needs, rather than what someone else thought up as a solution. So our last question then for today is, what type of business owner do you do your best work with? I think in some respects, this goes back to the micromanaging a bit, and I'd say it's the kind of business owner who's happy to iterate and not want the whole solution built in one go, and then when you turn it on, you just hope it all works. So if you imagine you're rewiring a house, all new electrics, everything. Now, if you run it all in, you install the whole thing, and then the decorators come in, light fittings go up, carpets go in, furniture's in, everything. And then the morning before the owner moves back in, you decide to check whether it all works. And you turn on, and of course, if there's anything wrong with it at that point, now it's been decorated, the furniture's in, all of a sudden you've got a nightmare. Rather than the right approach is you run the cables in. When the walls have been made good, you test the cables for damage to make sure there isn't anything. And at that stage, you then start adding bits on and you test as you go. And then there's the final test at the end and certification. So the work that we do follows a similar track. We'd rather do an update or a change every 14 days and test and try, and because that gives us, if we do every 2 weeks, that gives us 25 chances. If we work with you across a year, gives us 25 chances to correct the direction. Whereas if we do projects and we only launch elements every 3 months, now we've only got 4 goes in a year to correct direction and to fix things. And it becomes very inefficient, very frustrating, both for the business owner and for us. So it's really, we do our best work with business owners who want to be partners in it, and on that iteration just keep adding, keep making it better, add another thing, test it, add another thing, test it, rather than imagine a big thing and then try and launch it 6 months later hoping that it's still what you want it to be. So I hope that answers the question. Hope that helps. And with that, we're at the end of today's episode. So thanks again for joining me. I hope you'll join me again next week. And I'm Pieter K. de Villiers, Blind Spot Works, find the gaps, fix the business.